Hello, everyone. I'm not here today to stir fear or frustration. I'm here to spark perspective, especially for you, our seniors, our wisdom keepers. Because in a world filled with political headlines, your clarity, your health, and your mental well-being matter more than ever. Now let's talk facts. Yes, America appears to be warming up to Pakistan again. Why? Strategic reasons, regional balance, counterterrorism logistics, maybe even economic chess moves. But let me remind you of something powerful. America's global stance is about interests, not friendship. People talk about politics like it's a game of winners and losers. But the truth is, it's a map of shifting needs. When you hear the phrase, "Why is America supporting Pakistan over India?" Don't jump to judgment. Step back and look deeper. Because it's never about loyalty. It's about interest. Always has been. Always will be. That's how the world works. And pretending otherwise only confuses us more. See, alliances are not marriages. They're business deals, calculated moves on a global chessboard. The countries involved don't have emotions. They have objectives. And when those objectives change, so do the relationships. What appears like betrayal is often strategy. And understanding that, rather than fearing it, gives you power. You're not powerless in this conversation, even if it feels like it. You've lived long enough to see the Cold War, the rise of China, the US, Russia standoff, and more than a few peace talks that went nowhere. If you're sitting here now, confused or angry about global headlines, it just means you're paying attention. That's good. But what's even better is understanding that this isn't the first time things have shifted, and it won't be the last. Here's the key: never confuse movement with momentum. Just because America makes a move doesn't mean that move will last. Take a story from the 1960s, when the US backed Pakistan during the Indo-Pakistani War. It was all strategy, logistics, arms routes, influence. But guess what happened decades later? India became one of America's most powerful allies in tech, defense, and education. That shift didn't happen because the US suddenly became emotional. It happened because India evolved, became a force worth investing in. The same will happen again. Nations adjust to power, and India is a rising one. Which brings us to something even more important: the danger of perception. What we perceive is filtered through fear, emotion, and headlines. But reality, that requires reflection. Just because the news shows a handshake doesn't mean the countries are best friends. A photo op is not a treaty. A statement in Washington is not a guarantee on the ground. We live in a time where optics are everything and attention is currency. If they can get your attention, they can shape your opinion. Even if it's not the full story. There's an old story about a man and his horse. One day, the horse runs away and his neighbors cry, "What bad luck?" The man replies, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returns with 3 more wild horses. The neighbors cheer, "What good fortune?" The man replies again, "Maybe." Later, His son rides one of the wild horses, falls, and breaks his leg. Again, the neighbors mourn. What a disaster! The man says, maybe. Days later, an army recruiter comes to draft young men. But the son is exempt because of the injury. That story has been around for centuries, but its wisdom has never been more needed. What looks bad today may be good tomorrow. What looks good today may be trouble tomorrow. The wise don't panic, they pause. And that's what you must do, especially now, especially as someone who understands the value of calm. When you hear America is supporting Pakistan, take that pause. Breathe. Remember that things change. Power shifts. And global influence is a river, not a rock. India isn't going anywhere. Its economy is growing. Its youth are building. Its reputation is expanding. No single move will erase that. The seniors I meet often tell me they're worried. Worried about war, about instability, about where the world is headed. But what if, instead of worry, we reached for wisdom? You've seen enough to know that control is an illusion, but clarity is a choice. You can't control what nations do, but you can control how you interpret it. And that power, quiet, internal, personal, is what keeps you steady. That's where real strength lies. Think of this not as a crisis, but as a chapter. Not as betrayal, but as recalibration. When alliances shift, they test resilience. And that's something you, more than anyone, already have. So don't let headlines hijack your peace. Don't let perception shape your reality. Because what matters more than the alliance between two nations is the alliance you make with your own perspective. And when you strengthen, that you don't just weather world politics, you rise above them. You can't talk about global politics without talking about stress. And you can't talk about stress without talking about health, especially for those of us in the later chapters of life. Let's be real. When countries fight, when alliances shift, when headlines scream war or betrayal, your heartbeat doesn't care whether it's real or not. It just races. It just is. Your blood pressure spikes. You feel it. Not on a map. In your body. That's why this matters. It's not just about America and Pakistan and India. It's about how external conflict becomes internal chaos. You didn't ask for that. But it happens. Seniors are especially sensitive to stress. Not because you're weak, but because you've carried so much. You've spent decades being strong. And now, all you want is peace and a bit of predictability. But here's the truth you already start friod. They're just stop she know. The world doesn't shifting just because we've slowed down. That's why you must become even more intentional about protecting your peace. There's a saying, when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Global powerhouses may flex and posture, but it's ordinary people, especially the elderly, who bear the consequences. Economies falter, prices rise, medicine shortages happen, access to public health gets strained. And when health systems feel the pressure, you feel it at the pharmacy, in the hospital wait times, in the availability of care. You don't have to follow geopolitics to be affected by it. It follows you. So don't let anyone tell you these topics are too big for you to care about. You have every right to understand how peace, or the lack of it, impacts your well-being. When tensions rise between nations, especially ones as big and bold as India and Pakistan, it's not just about soldiers and borders. It's about how government budgets shift. It's about where international aid flows. It's about what gets prioritized and what gets cut. Sometimes that includes health funding. Sometimes it's elder services. Sometimes it's the very programs you rely on for daily support. But here's what we forget. Peace is not a passive luxury. It's an active practice, just like health. Peace to fall in your lap. You cultivate it in your home, your mind, your daily habits. And when the world outside starts to rattle, you ground yourself even deeper inside. Because if you let every political shift become a personal storm, you'll burn out faster than the news cycle can change. Now, let's talk about something that often gets buried in all this talk of alliances and support. And that's India's strength. There's a temptation to look at one move from a powerful country and start questioning everything. One handshake between America and Pakistan doesn't erase decades of progress between America and India. Economic growth, its technological innovation, or its global reputation. Just because the spotlight moves doesn't mean the foundation is shaking. Think about a stage play and gets the spotlight. Everyone sees them, but that doesn't mean the others have left. Still moving, still acting, still shaping the story. That's India. It might not be in the spotlight today, but it's still commanding the stage. This matters because when we let fear take over, we start telling ourselves stories that aren't true. We go from America had a meeting with Pakistan to India's being abandoned. That's not fact. That's fear talking. And fear loves to exaggerate. Real confidence comes from remembering what's true. India has partnerships with global tech giants. It's launching satellites. It's influencing culture, medicine, education. Trade. That momentum isn't built on a single relationship. It's built on years of investment and credibility. And that doesn't disappear overnight. There's a story about bamboo tree. You plant it, water it, nurture it. For years, just a sprout, barely noticeable. But in the 5th year, almost overnight, up 90 feet. Not because it suddenly got strong, but because it was building strength underground. Quietly, steadily. That's India. That can be you too. You may not always feel like you're growing, but beneath the surface, you are building something resilient, something that can withstand whatever global headlines try to shake you. So when you hear